The United States has been the one supplying the bulk of the money, the bulk of the intelligence, the bulk of the weapons. And now, instead of getting any kind of cooperation out of Zelensky, Zelensky's attacking Trump. What an incredibly dumb thing to do. The U.S. is going to pull the plug. I've already heard that they've started pulling CIA officers out of Ukraine. So the CIA paramilitary support that's been there and active, that's starting to be unraveled. That U.S. intelligence ISR platforms are no longer operating, that's entirely up to the Brits. You want to collect intel, you go collect it. We're not doing that anymore. So if those elements are true, the United States is already starting to disengage. And the reality is Ukraine's going to run out of money and weapons because Europe, despite all of its big talks, not in a position to provide or replace anything. So Zelensky is literally biting the hand that feeds him. Instead of exercising some humility, instead of recognizing, you know what, getting into a public pissing contest with Donald Trump is not a good idea. I'll keep my concerns in private. I'll go talk to him. If Zelensky was smart, he'd be praising Donald Trump for he's a great leader and what a wise man he is, and that Zelensky wants to do whatever he can help Donald Trump to achieve his objectives, and then get him in private and say, what the hell are you doing to me? That'd be one thing. But to do this out in public, and again, I have friends that have met with Trump in person where they've delivered very tough messages to Trump. In person, he can take it. And actually, sometimes he listens. But when you try to take him down in public, it's just, hey, he's this New York brawler, and that's what comes out.
And Larry, I mean, come on, man, read the room. I mean, yeah. All the signs are out there. It's over. It's over, past tense. You should be doing everything you can to say, well, let me get as much as I can out of this deal. Let me get the best terms I can. Let me get the best parachute to land somewhere safe that I can. I mean, that should be animating his actions right now. There is no alternative, none.
Right.
But do you think, quick question, do you think that Zelensky is so detached from reality, from whatever sources, you mentioned potentially drugs and some other stuff, or just pressure, that he actually thinks that by saying these things publicly, he's going to shame Trump into changing course? What do you think is on his mind?
Oh, yeah, no, I think it's the latter. I think he's the sources, the people he's talking to in the United States and in the European Union are telling him, you can't back down. Trump's a bully. You just got to confront him. Boy, talk about bad advice. Trump is, he's going to be unrelenting in this. And again, it'd be one thing if it was just confined to this area, but Trump still remembers this character helped put him into the impeachment box the first time. Zelensky did. When Zelensky could have helped Trump from going through that and didn't lift a finger. Do you think, and basically, when Zelensky's body is on fire, and if Trump is drinking a cup of coffee, Trump won't even pour a cup of coffee on to try to put it out. Well, what Trump and Putin are going to discuss is Ukraine's not going to actually be a central part of the discussion, I would suggest. We already got word that as a result of the initial preliminary negotiations between the Russians and Americans in Saudi Arabia yesterday, they're going to set up 6 subgroups. Each subgroup will have a particular negotiator or negotiating team from each side involved. Group 1 is going to focus on what's called strategic security and arms control, looking at like the New START treaty. Group 2 is going to look at a review of the global security architecture. Does it make sense to have a UN Security Council where India and Brazil, for example, aren't represented, and you don't have a solid Africa representative? Group 3 is going to look at bilateral diplomatic relations. So to get both from the U.S. and the Russian standpoint, get back to a normal diplomacy. Group 4 is going to look at energy and sanctions, and they're going to be focused on that. Group 5 is going to look at Ukraine, They'll talk, okay, what needs to be done to get down with Ukraine? And I'm sure the Russians will say, close your checkbook, cut off the flow of funds, and, it'll be over. And then Group 6 is going to look at international affairs, things such as the Middle East, relations with Iran, and the Arctic. So Americans need to understand this. What Trump has initiated with Russia is not about ending the war in Ukraine. Good Lord, no. This is much broader. This is global in scope. And, if anything, the events on the ground in Ukraine are going to dictate the outcome. And the Russian advances are accelerating. What you're going to see now with people in Kiev, in the military, in the intelligence service, once they recognize that U.S. support for Zelensky is over, he is now going to be a target of coups. It's open season on Zelensky.